time for a little DIY. I don't think I've ever done a DIY video, but I love DIY. So I decided to film this scrunchie making video. I have never made a scrunchie before, but I watched a few videos and honestly it looks pretty simple. So I'm hoping it's as simple as it looks. I just wanted to quickly say before I go through everything that you need, I'm going to use this Gucci dust bag. If you don't have any dust bags, you could also use some ribbon. I have this Chanel ribbon or like a YSL ribbon or Dior ribbon or anything like that I thought you could like make the scrunchie and then cut the Chanel sign off and then stitch that on. I might do that as well because I think that would be really cute. If you don't have any designer ribbon, you can go onto Etsy, because recently I came across these on Etsy where some people sell like a whole roll of like Chanel ribbon, Dior ribbon, like pretty much any kind of ribbon you want, and it wasn't expensive. If I remember correctly, I don't think it was expensive at all, because I don't think it's real. I think it's just what somebody makes, but still, who knows and who cares really. So if you don't have any of that stuff, you can like check out Etsy and then just use some like old material if you have any lying around your house. Yeah, just wanted to give you a few options that if you don't have this specific thing, you could still make it with other products. Okay, so let's jump into what you're going to need for this. Okay, so what you're going to need is the dust bag or material and something you want to stick onto it, or just material. Is scissors, a pin, a measuring tape or a ruler. You need some thread and a black thread as well. Some little pins, an elastic and some safety pins. So the first thing I did was measured it, and I realized that the length of this wasn't long enough. So I had to come up with a little alternative of what I was going to do with this, because I needed like about another 11 or 12 centimeters. So what I did was I cut down the sides, and I also just checked the width to make sure that I had enough on the width, which I did. And then I cut up the other side, and then as you can see here, it made the material longer. Like, I don't worry about that stitch in the middle because the scrunchie's going to scrunch up anyway and you're not going to see it. So what I did was then I took the little Gucci tag off with one of these little thread things. I don't know what they're called, but it helps like break the thread. So I did that. It was only attached by 4 little corners, so I took that off pretty easily. So what I did was I measured my material to the length and width that I needed. I then turned it inside out and drew on the inside, because this is going to be stitched in the inside, so you're not going to see it. I just found it so much easier to have all the markings, so all the markings done. So then when I go and cut through it, it just makes it so much easier. And there we have the sheet of material that we need for this. And then we have our piece of elastic. I would recommend going longer than this. So I'm just taking one side of the material and I'm just going to stitch this in so the seam is nice and neat. I use a few little pins just to hold that in place, and then I go in and I'm just going to stitch along this, just so it looks a little bit neater, as you can see here. So then what we do is you want to fold the material so that the outside of the scrunchie is going to be on the inside, because we're going to stitch up the seam and then flip it inside out. I'm doing the same thing here. I'm just pinning it along the seam, so then it's going to make it so much easier when I go to sew it in. And then I'm stitching up along the whole seam the same way I did along the top. There we have that done. So what I do now is I take a safety pin and stitch it and just stick it into one side of the material, and all I'm going to do is thread this through. And then I'll be able to just turn it inside out so much easier. And that is that. So you can see here then the stitch is all done on the inside and everything looks nice and neat. So I have my little Gucci sign stuck on here with some pins just to see where I want it to be. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to stitch the little corners in. This was a little bit hard because I had to make sure that I wasn't going to stitch up the opposite side. So I had to be really careful and make sure I didn't do that. So just take your time with this little part so you don't end up stitching the whole scrunchie together. So what I do now is I have 2 safety pins stuck to either side of the elastic. One I'm going to stitch to one side of the scrunchie, and then I'm going to thread the other one through, so that way you can get the elastic through and it's not going to pop through the other side. As I just take the ends of the elastic and I'm just putting that in a double knot and sticking it together. So now what I do is I make sure that my seam is all lined up before I sew the last little bit. Then I'm going to take the raw end of the scrunchie and tuck it into the neat end that we first sewed up, just so everything looks nice and neat. And then we're just going to stitch all the way down the seams. And that's pretty much it. I think it turned out pretty cute for my first scrunchie I ever made. I think it's real cute. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this type of video, and I will be back next time with a makeup video.